I'm going to do this. I'm going to flick to my Moodle, which is actually Delhi's Moodle, and ask you, how big should I make that? Is that good?
Yeah, I think that looks good.
So you should be, actually, I'm going to turn off editing. So get rid of that. People won't have to read much. I just want to show some features.
Yeah, I think that's a good size. Everything's pretty visible. It's nice and big.
That works. Okay. All right. That's good. Thank you. Welcome to everyone. Let's see. How does everyone sound? I know that Gabriella can hear.
Yep.
If everyone is good, if you could just type something into the chat window. Say, hi, I can hear you now.
Hello.
Hey, who's that?
I'm Lisa Heimbauer.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Are you outside?
No, it's a den that used to be part of an outside, yeah.
I could turn my monitor and you could see what our outside looks like, which is right now only about 10 inches of snow.
Only.
Where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Western New York, close to the Pennsylvania border.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I have a bit of a head cold. Yeah, we don't have that much snow here near Delhi.
That's good. I guess, huh?
Yeah.
I'm going to put this into the chat. So. This is the link to the haiku deck that is very brief. Oh, let's see.
See if I can unmute.
Is that Philly?
Hey, Tom, do you want to try saying something now?
Hi, Emily. Welcome. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm going to try and see if I can get it figured out. So, Tom, are you able to hear me? I guess so.
Yeah, we can hear.
Yes, he's typing. So if you, in your Zoom session with your mouse, if you move it, you'll get like a little toolbar kind of thing at the bottom of your screen. And on the left-hand side is a microphone. And so next to that is an arrow. If you click it, you can choose like a microphone to talk with. And you might need to set up the audio options.
Welcome, Emily, Rebecca, Hembala. Ooh, what's that?
Oh, I think it was, we've got a couple of sessions that we're recording right now, and someone else in the room is talking. Let's see if we can get Tom's audio working.
Tom, you can always type things into the chat.
Yeah, if you can't get the audio working, we'll be monitoring the chat room for questions throughout the session. You're typing.
Sorry, that's me.
Oh.
So if folks want to, I'm hoping that I don't have a challenge with a barking dog or an ill husband, I've done everything proactively that I can. If I stop talking and you hear a dog barking, we're all safe here. But if you have some external noise, you may want to mute your mic.
Yeah, what we've been doing that's worked well for the other sessions is having people mute their audio and then either typing their questions into the chat box or like at the end having a kind of like Q&A session.
Right. I was planning on, in fact, we can, if you're okay, Erica, we can get going. I have some time at the end for Q&A.
Yeah, so we can get started, and I am just going to ask everybody to mute your audio for right now, and if you can't get that figured out, I will mute it for you. Just to cut down on feedback, because there's a little bit of, you can hear typing, and in the room I'm in right now, there's some background noise, and you can always unmute yourself by on the left-hand side of the screen. There's the little microphone, and you can unmute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, I see the mute, and then I can still hear her, right? Okay.
Yeah, yep. She just won't hear you. So if you do speak, you can make sure you unmute yourself or type in the chat box.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we can get going now if you're ready, Kathleen.
Okay. So welcome from snowy Western New York, and I hope that you all are having just peachy keen weather like we are. This is, I'm not going to be showing you many slides. I don't know if you've seen a lot of slides today. But this is a little haiku deck. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the tool. It's one of the tools that helps us, I'm not going to say forces us, helps us to minimize our text words and maximize the images that go with them. So just as a brief little introduction, my day job is a faculty member in the College of Education. I've been out in the workforce teaching and doing such things for about 35 years. So I'm an old person trying to use new technology. Sometimes that gives me street cred with my colleagues who are faculty members, and also sometimes even with the first year students, because I say, if I can do it with this gray hair, you should be able to do it. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I thank you for being here today. I think that most of us have been in on a lot of sessions, so kudos to everyone for their staying power. I think this is my plan for today. Let's see how well I do with it. I wanted to introduce you to a formula, kind of a formula I've been thinking about as I've used the book resource in Moodle, and then look at some examples from my own practice and decode them. This is a strategy I've used a lot at CIT and some other professional development sessions where it's kind of like not just talking about it, you know, putting the meat and potatoes on the table and seeing what you think about it. And then I left some time, I'm hoping, for Q&A. So meanwhile, as you have questions, if you pop them into the chat window, I can either try to address them as I'm moving or tell you that we're on the way to addressing them. So, I have a three-part formula. First part of the formula is, notice I didn't call it a recipe because I often don't go near the big white hot thing, which is our name for the stove in our house. Love the book. Love the book tool in Moodle because it is a wonderful way to shrink wrap complexity and keep everything inside the box. So, you know, we're always looking for something that's going to help us with our design work and also to make things, I'm not going to call it uniform, but easily navigable by our learners. So I have found that the book is not the only tool, but certainly a very functional tool within Moodle and unique to the Moodle learning environment. So, and by the way, we at Fredonia have been sitting on Delhi's Moodle for about almost 2 years. Yeah, and boy, am I going to miss you guys because we're now migrating to Moodle rooms. And I want to tell you, they have locked down so many things, it isn't funny.
Yes, I just heard that from somebody from Empire.
Oh my gosh. Anyhow. So the next part of the formula is this. How many times have we heard this? But I'm going to repeat it. Design with the end in mind. So what do we want to do? We want to figure out what we want our learners to know, understand, and do before we start putting the stuff in the book. And then I use the term scaffold a lot because I do an awful lot of educational psychology training and that kind of thing. I'm an old special educator. I think that scaffolding is a way to build people's background knowledge and then also to link them to new knowledge. And the book tool really helps us to do that while minimizing complexity. The final part of the formula is this. And that's where the title of this talk came from. It's about embedding active response and application within the content that's in the book and making sure that your pedagogy is leading, not kind of being dragged along behind because we're using a tool or tools. So this is actually, I found this image in Haiku Deck. This is a Lego arm reaching out of the computer monitor to touch the keyboard. I thought that was kind of telling because we want unless you're designing books simply for I call it housekeeping or business as usual, unless you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're building in opportunity for responding and application within the book if you want to use it as a real powerhouse. So that's my formula, and I'm going to ask you to help me put it to the test, okay? So I'm clicking to, this is just one of my sandboxes for my online courses. This is, again, on Delhi's Moodle. Thank you so much. And I divided, don't worry, we're not going to go through all of these examples, and these are not all of the books that I use in all of my courses and training, but I divided the concept of spring training. Spring just sounds so great right now. Spring training into two buckets. Business as usual, this one here, and digging in. And digging in is where we're really going to look at some of the ways that I incorporate deeper learning using the book tool. And I don't use an awful lot of things within the book tool, but I use the things that work well for me. So I want to differentiate for you what is troubleshooting, what is business as usual versus kind of digging in. So let me give you an example. We all have things like the troubleshooting, I call it the troubleshooting ABCs in our courses. I know it's the where to go to so you don't have to call the help desk kind of thing. And so this is my little troubleshooting book right there that gets them to some key elements, high frequency tools that we use, where to go for help, and I'm just flicking through so that you can get an idea of what's in there. And some guidance for using them. So sometimes they're links, sometimes they're little directions, sometimes they're external links to tutorials. Nothing fancy, I call it business as usual. There is no need for anybody to do anything but use the materials as a reference point. So we know that the Moodle book is an excellent way to package a lot of content for reference and for folks to use as they do other things. So that's an example of what I consider to be business as usual. I also have another business as usual example mostly to differentiate from the deeper content applications, and that's something that I use in every single module when I teach online courses or when I teach blended courses. So I do a wrap-up booklet, and the booklet always has some kudos and reminders and that kind of thing. I usually have a pay attention please, and I always have this certain person holding this little mobile device up going, look at me, okay, because I'm usually teaching young people. So it's usually a forecast for what's going to happen next. So this is business as usual. I ask them to recheck all of their materials. I ask them to pay attention to the anal paperclip guide. I call them cap and wrap them up, to go back and check the module schedule to make sure they've done all the things. The only thing interactive about this business as usual book is this. And it's an external link to a rubric that I ask them to complete every single time they have completed a module. So they click to a Google form and they fill it out. I ask them to always give me some idea of what their workflow was, at least their idea of how their workflow was. That way I don't have to use another survey or whatever, although I usually do use the choice tool in Moodle to get an idea of time. I often ask them what thing they're the most proud of and the thing that was most challenging. And then I built this little rubric that parallels the rubric that I use for actually grading them, where they rate themselves on a scale in terms of completing the work, being accurate with the work, and then writing, formatting, and submission mechanics. So it's something that in the first module is brand new to them. They're not used to checking their own, checking their own work. At least they say they're not. So it's something that I always embed. And that's the only thing interactive about this particular book, but it's a wonderful way to scale them up to paying attention to things that they're going to have to do as time goes on. And then I always usually end the wrap-up book with, so what's coming next? Tells them about grading and feedback, and ask them to take a breath, but also plan ahead and book work time into their next module period. So I consider those things to be business as usual, and how great the book tool is in terms of packaging that content. If we did it in Pages, if we did it in whatever, it would be actually helping the inevitable Moodle swirl of death. Try to not do that, right? So those are some examples of taking things that would normally be a lot of announcements, et cetera, and shrink wrapping them into something that I really expect them to pay attention to. Not that I don't use announcements and some of the other tools, but this is a way for them to have it all in one place. And I encourage them to often print it as a PDF and work with it offline if they wish. So that's different than the digging in ideas. So let me give you some examples of either meshing external tools or using Moodle tools within the book. By the way, in the old days, we had a book that had an embedded quiz. We don't have that anymore. I haven't had it for several versions. They want us to use lesson instead. So there's all this debate about whether lesson or book is better, and we won't get into that today. But I use lesson for different things and workshop for different things, but I use book all the time. So this is a book that goes with the very first chapter in my EdPsych undergrad's textbook. So I give them a little introduction, which most of us do when we're building a book. And then this is where that piece about not forgetting the pedagogy. I ask the students to take a look at what I think is important before they start reading the chapter. Now, the chapter has guidance in it, but I also have some pickiness about what I think is important. And so what I do is give them, this is a Google Doc, a link to a Google Doc that has a series of study questions that correspond to every single chapter in the book. So you're seeing one now. There's a quote here. I'm asking them to summarize in key ideas and then put it in their own words. And basically make meaning of the text, because we have an awful lot of students who have difficulty paraphrasing and also have I just saw a typo, and have difficulty generating examples. So I ask them to read whatever the study questions are for the chapter initially. Then I usually embed a kind of a big idea video of some sort, and I try not to have to produce it myself. If I do, I do. And I have some examples of that as well. And so this is a very nice YouTube video by a teacher, street cred for future teachers whom I teach, and gives an introduction to the core concepts in setting objectives and goals with students. So this is all business as usual, right? It's just packaging content and scaffolding it for them. I ask them to go to the text. Okay. However, as soon as they do that, read chapter 1, I take them to an opportunity to test themselves. So I use a third-party bit of content that asks them, this is the answer key actually, that asks them to decide whether things are this or that, and then give them the answer key. So, so I give them a little easy lesson. Then I give them an embedded little slideshow on what are learning objectives anyhow. All of this is redundant with each other, which I sometimes get critiqued about, but I really find that students who identify themselves as high visual learners, high audio learners, whatever they think they are, hitting them in different angles and giving them some choices, you'll notice there are optional choices here, helps them to figure out that it's not just the text telling them something, but it's the field, it's the expertise, it's the whatever. Then I ask them to go in, use the study questions. You know, that's pretty normal, right? And then I build in an application. So I, in one little book, have scaffolded from the basics, doing good, study skills, previewing your text, then using the text, using additional materials, most of them third party or things that I have mashed up, and then I ask them to do an application. So in this application, I give them 3 choices. They can look at a message written by a principal, they can review a blog post, or they can look at this video. And I give them directions about what they need to do in order to do an analysis of it. So this is chapter 1 of their textbook. And I consider the book to be like the little coach on the side that helps them migrate through the material and use it, but not in a real heavy-duty way. So that's an example of hopefully blending some of the pedagogy with the wonderful, in this case, linear scaffolding that the book provides. I do something similar with, I call it, sometimes, you know, I come up with these sillinesses, like taking a virtual field trip. And this is about mindset. I often introduce mindset into any of my courses because students come with such fixed mindsets often about both what their learning strategies are and how they feel about technology and how they wish they were taking the course in a different way and that kind of thing. So at any rate, but in the Ed Psych course, it has a totally good fit. So we've got an intro. Now, here's the business as usual stuff. I build into this book directions on starting their first Google Doc that they're going to use to record their thinking as they move through this activity. So this could normally be in any other format, but it's the how to get your doc set up. So that's business as usual. It's housekeeping. And then I asked them to jump into a couple of little reports by experts in the field, Carol Dweck in this case, and walk them through some scaffolded thinking about looking at the videos. So I haven't used one of the video annotation tools to do this. Instead, I am capitalizing, because I want them also to get really, really, really good with using Google Drive apps for a lot of reasons. They're going to be teachers. They're easy to share. We can do things collaboratively, that kind of thing. So I'm wedded to that, and we're one of the partial Google Apps campuses. So I asked them to look at the video and then answer a couple of questions that ties it back to their own experience. That is the pedagogy piece. Then I asked them to go through another video, do the same kind of thing. And they go through a series of, 3 different cycles on videos. I asked them to explore the Brainology website. And finally, I asked them to do something that is deeper learning. So this is one of the classroom assessment techniques, the CATS strategies. And I asked them to do a 3-2-1 summary. So using that same Google Doc, I asked them to come up with 3 things they've learned, 2 things they think they should learn to do, and 1 question they think they might put into their own lifelong learning agenda, something that they need to use as a goal. So that's 1 step. That's kind of, putting it in their own words. And then I asked them to generate a quiz question. They love this. They're not very good at it initially, but they do love it. So in a shared Google Doc, which is that very last step in the book, I'm taking you to a live doc from one of my fall sections. So I'm not going to give you guys permanent access to this because there's actually names and that kind of thing. So students have to build, using this shared Google Doc, an objective question, the answer, an explanation of the answer. Oh, holy cow. Do I make them work at the end or what? And then something from the module that would verify that they're not just making up the answer. In other words, a go-to resource for their colleagues. So I get all kinds of responses, but how cool is this? I asked them to generate something that is not low on Bloom's taxonomy. So I get to work with them somewhat on that as they try to dig deeper into their own understanding. So, so with this little video tour, basically, I have asked them to summarize in 3 or 4 different ways, do a final summary, and then test themselves and test their colleagues, which I can then use later in a quiz or some other tool that I want to use. So again, what have I done? I've tried to shrink wrap, using that formula, shrink wrap the complexity, scaffold their learning, and also then build in some applications that make sense for what I want them to be able to do at the end. I'm just going to check chat for a second and see how we're doing. I don't see any questions in there right now. Okay. So that's my undergrads. This is an example that has a little more, yeah, okay. This is an example from my graduate class of current and future educators. I had some international students who are not currently teaching, and some U.S. students who are teaching right now and are pursuing their master's degree. So this is a little book that guides them through, I'm going to call it again, business as usual, to have them do some research on what's required of 21st century learners, and then to do some application. So there's that, your mission or the introduction or your goals. Again, This page could easily be in any other format, but I'm asking them to do something other than Google it. I'm asking them to experience other search engines, and I also want them to find things that are going to be K-12 friendly because they are teachers or future teachers. So I have some extra little optional stuff built in. That's not often hit on, but sometimes it is. And then I ask them to get to the meat and potatoes of it. So I ask them to build a curated group of credible information that includes an infographic, a website, and a video that helps define what 21st century learners need to do or do, right? So I asked them to locate it all and put the resources into our course DECO group. I asked all of my students, whether they're in a tech course or in an ed psych course or literacy course, to use DECO and some other productivity tools, and I constantly remind them of it. So I set up DECO groups so that I can have them share with each other and share with us, while not taking away the advantage of building their own, pool of resources. So they got to find this stuff in this case, and then what they have to do is choose a curation tool. These are the ones that I have targeted for them, but they can use another one if they wish, and bundle or shrink wrap their resources into a curation. I advise them that they can go get help or locate other resources at places like Common Sense Media, at edshelf.com, whatever. Okay. So I don't actually give them guidance on using the tool, because I send them to the resource and ask them to use the resource, to the help files in the resource to do it. And then I ask them to publish their curation. Now I also give them an example somewhere along the way. And so that last step and this step, that's the application here. They've done some research. I haven't done it for them. We don't have a book that tells it to them. So I ask them to collectively publish to, in this case, a Google slide deck. Why am I using Google and not something else? Because we can do it simultaneously. We can do it asynchronously. And again, I have this hidden agenda because I want them to become more competent using some of the productivity tools that they don't already use. I'm going to, I actually don't want to make this full screen because then I'll lose the chat window. But here's an example, or here are the examples as they skim through. So there's a link to their curation. They highlight what they did, and then they ask questions related to the content that they have reviewed and evaluated. So in this case, that is the application. And of course, these are all the directions on how to get the Google slide deck produced without stepping all over each other. So what I do, and you can see them skimming through now, is I create a template in the slide deck for each of the slides that they just need to replace the text and put their own. If you can see the slide numbers clicking. So we didn't have that many students in the class. So that's an example of embedding a synchronous or asynchronous tool that allows students to demonstrate both or to share with each other so that they can demonstrate that they got it and have summarized what their understandings are with respect to 21st century learning. In the next book, and it wasn't right away, I always kind of stopgap things because you never quite know how close to the deadline people are going to do things, but I asked them to build it out. So I asked them to, this is a separate book, I asked them to put the icing on the cupcake, and I asked them to circle back and look at all of the curated resources that we've generated together. Woohoo! Okay, there's that slide deck again. But then I asked them to go in and comment on colleague slides. And I'm not going to show you that at this point, but that's one of the ways that I often use to help people get better at whatever they did without me always being the sage on the stage. So I asked them to do that together, and then I will comment on the two people's conversations in the doc, or in the slide deck in this case. The other resource I wanted them to take a look at is something that we separately compiled, and that's using a tool called PadLook. Again, this is an external tool. It is free, and it's something that I had asked them to do in the meantime before they got to this book. So what they did is they took a look at some interviews with entrepreneurial 21st century teachers. They looked at their materials, they looked at interviews with them, and then they summarized the information that they found on these people using PadLook. So they did do two. They defined two from this choice that I gave them, and then they had to publish them easily to the Padlet. Again, this is a tool that can be used synchronously or asynchronously, and I love it because it spices things up a little bit, okay, and also has some very easy features for embedding audio and video and shrinking it together. So I asked them to look at that too. They had all done their work. And here's the proof of the pudding, the critical thinking piece. And I'm going to stop here. Again, I did not invent this. We've all used this, I think probably, but it's one of the CATS classroom assessment techniques, where I asked them to take all of the things that they built and that they've just reviewed and sometimes commented on, and create an elevator speech, 30 seconds or less, that summarizes what they think are the most critical things that 21st century teachers and learners need to be able to understand, know, and do. And then I asked them to come back into Moodle and publish to what I call the 21st Century Teaching Forum. Now, I don't have an active link to that in this version because I brought this book into this separate Moodle sandbox, but in the actual doc, or in the actual book, in the course, there would be a link. I'll just do it right here. There would be a link right here to the forum. Even though they certainly have a reminder of where it is, it would be a link right to the forum in the book. Okay, so that is, I'm checking the time. I'm at 2:36. And I just want to see if we wanted to open up things for questions and see where we are on that. How are we doing?
Are there any questions? See if there's anything in the chat box. I don't see anything.
Sometimes I am very good at putting people to sleep.
Aw. Let's see. I don't know if we have any questions or not. We, this isn't really a question, but we at Delhi use the book a lot. We have some professional development tracks. There are a bunch of asynchronous courses, and we use the book in every single one. It's like you said, I actually tweeted, I quoted you, I really like that you said shrink wrapping complex ideas, because that's really what you're doing, and it's the best tool to do it, especially when you want to put a lot of information into kind of one module. Mm-hmm. We use it a lot. We love the book.
I have used it as a whole module, but often I don't, because because what happens is they'll look at that item and go, oh, it's just one thing to do. But I think by using the book as a tool early on with multiple steps involved that have some accountabilities interspersed,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of trains their, not just their mindset, but their routines, their learning routines. So they're expecting to have something that's an accountability.
Yeah. Yep.
Not just something that's going to go into, quote, the assignment, the assignment tool.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think one of the things that we all potentially, I'm an old fart, but one of the things I think that we all tend to suffer from, and that is expectation that we're going to, we've done such a great job of compiling and curating these wonderful resources for you. You're going to love it. We put in images, we put in cartoons, we put in this and that and the other thing. And they're looking for, what do I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And when is it due? So kind of tricking them into that, a different kind of a learning routine. I think book is wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm listening. I'm trying to see if does somebody have a question out there. No? So we have a choice. I can show you a couple of other things if you'd like. I guess one of the things I do want to bring up though is I am critiqued often for using too many tools, for throwing a lot of technology at kids. Most of the examples I gave you were from my Ed Psych course, so they don't expect to use technology because it doesn't have technology in the name of the course. Even if they're taking it online, they kind of go like this, I'll hold my breath through the technology until the test. Then they get surprised because there is no test. There are a million little applications that ask them to do thinking things and application things as they move along. So the primary tools that I use outside of or in conjunction with Moodle are obviously Google Docs and Google Slide Deck. Those are my two big ones. I use Google Forms for that Rubric that I use for everything, and so that's a core part of my toolbox. And then I will often drop into a book a VoiceThread, a PadLook, and then potentially one of the curation tools that I've already used to compile things like Blend Space or Lesson Paths or something, especially if I'm trying to get them to use, quote, a cool tool to combine their work together. So so I don't overuse a lot of things. I use a lot of things a lot. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Unless they're in a totally technology class, then I figure, what the hell?
Throw it all at them. Yeah.
What did I say? So I just wanted to, I actually had let me just go back to screen sharing for a second and do this. I think if I can move my screen just a little bit, close that. And we did the exemplar tool. I just want to show you this really cool question slide because I'm hungry, and say thank you.